No, you're doing great. You're all doing great. This is such a wonderful program. We're going to go to Stefania and then Nils. I'm trying to get everybody equal time here. Stefania?
Yes, I mean, what do you, please ask me a question because
Okay, Stefania, what they just said about how difficult is it for you as a journalist to get popular support in your own home country of Italy, my grandparents' home country?
Well, actually, popular support is quite wide here. Even if the politics, our politics is the problem, is completely broken without beyond any repair. I mean, politics, we are in deep troubles. But I mean, people, there is quite a widespread support, I believe, and I have seen how they interact. They ask the right question. They ask, what can I do? I mean, what kind of practical help can I provide? So at the popular level, I think it's quite good, the situation here. It's the politics. I mean, last week, our law chamber voted against providing any support to Julian Assange, and the Democratic Party voted with the far right and right with the right wing. The Italian Democratic Party. We had a magnificent communist party in the 70s, and now we have this Democratic Party voting with the right, with the Berlusconi party, with the Salvini party, with the Renzi party against Julian Assange. And we are in trouble with our politics, but we are not in trouble with people. People are involved, people mobilize, people, and the Italian Union of Journalists is completely siding with Julian Assange. So today they issued a press release strongly condemning this ruling by the British High Court, and that was really positive,
Right. Nils, what's the roadmap that you see forward in extricating Julian from this endless nightmare?
Yeah, well, as I've said before, I've not been surprised by what happened today. As you know very well, the last time we talked on your show, I predicted precisely this outcome. And by the way, I predicted it already one day after the judgment of the first instance court on the 4th of January, where I saw that she had reduced the topic, that the themes that were going to be discussed to precisely the conditions of detention and the state of health of Assange. So what I'm saying, in my book that's coming out in February in English on the trial of Julian Assange, the last chapter I added just recently was on the appeals procedure, and I called it, the title of that chapter is Playing Out the Plot, because that's really what we're seeing in this case all along. Since his expulsion from the embassy, the latest, and actually already before, it's just a plot that's playing out with a predictability that is scary. It's just like watching a car crash happening in slow motion, and every now and then someone asking you to comment on what you're seeing. Well, it's still a car crash happening in slow motion. We know exactly what's at the end of this. At the end, Julian Assange is crushed as a person, and our rights have been, done away with. That's what the purpose of this is, because we have a very small and ever smaller powerful elite that concentrates more and more power. And we are still, by and large, the general public is under the illusion that we have functioning democracies governed by the rule of law. And I believe that our jobs, in our various functions, with our various audiences and networks that we have, is to disillusion people. Be gentle enough for them to actually listen to you, but to be clear enough for them to actually be disillusioned. It's not, yes, it's about Julian Assange, but his case to me is like a keyhole through which you can see a parallel universe that already exists. and where our democratic rights and institutions have already been neutralized. It's not like we're going to win this case if Julian Assange is not extradited, and we're going to lose it if he's extradited. We've already lost it. Journalists today, if you offer them a USB stick with collateral murder #2 and the next 250,000 diplomatic cables, are they going to publish them? No, because they already see what's happening to the people that were involved in those publications, and to Julian, to the whistleblowers. That's all. The intimidation, the deterrence is already working. What we need is the courage in the broader public to face the truth, because the truth is uncomfortable and it is complicated. It means we have to change the system. It's not like we can replace one prime minister or one judge or one prosecutor. It's a systemic failure that has evolved over decades. And today, we still believe that we're a democracy because we elect people, into parliament every 4 years. But who is actually financing their campaigns? It's the lobbies. Who is actually writing the legislative pieces for them? It's the lobbies. Those lobbies are private industries that also own most of the media, or actually control them through their commercials and marketing, financing and so on. So the media, the parliament elects the government and the judges and so on. So by and large, our democratic institutions have already been privatized. So this is just a window dressing exercise. There's these elections every 4 years. So you have to accept that truth, and then start from that realization, start changing things. It's not replacing bad people and bringing good people into those positions. It's the whole that will then be corrupted a few years later themselves. You really have to accept that we have a monumental task of putting the spotlight on what the truth really is, how that system really works. And the case of Julian Assange is an excellent case illustrating what the reality really is. And then say, this is not the world we want to leave to our children. We really want to change this.
Right. Nils Melzer, Randy Credico live on the fly, 99.5 FM in New York City. Free Speech Radio. Roger, I know you wanted to ask John a question.
No, I don't. I want to respond to what Nils has just said.
Okay, go ahead.
It's what I was trying to get out, and something in my heart was nudged when Stefania mentioned organized labor and said the unions were this and that. And we were talking earlier about direct action, which is where we have to go, because we are not going to persuade people on MSNBC or Fox News or anything else, or via any of those channels. Okay, but how do we get Nils's evident good sense to go viral in a way that will get people to do whatever it is that we haven't said yet in the street? Craig was talking about people outside the High Court. There were thousands of them sitting in the street, and the police left them alone because it would have caused too much trouble to pick them up and arrest them all and put them in. That's what I was trying to get at earlier, because it's quite clear. What Nils says is absolutely true. What Stefania says, what John says, it's true. Everything that we're saying is true. How do we light the effing fire and turn it into a conflagration of resistance to what Nils has just been describing? I mean, I'm energized by his talk.
Well, we have to, can I just say, we have to start a long process. The first thing is to discard illusions, to stop banging our heads against the mainstream media, to regard them as the enemy, all of them, unless there are honorable exceptions that can prove they are. But otherwise, this constant effort that is put in by good people to get into the mainstream media, to get as Craig mentioned, to get a glimpse on the BBC or whatever, that has to go. I think that any direct action has to go to the media.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Direct action has gone to the Guardian,
Right.
and it has to go. I've always felt this as far as Murdoch's press is concerned. They absolutely hate it. You can do it with few people, but it has to be the kind of creation of a fifth estate. We used to have a fourth estate. Now we need a fifth estate. That is people who understand that there's more to our whole journalistic life than the so-called mainstream media. And I think many of us have understood that already. But many of us are still indulging it. We have to end those illusions and begin, just to begin. It's a long haul. It always is. But once you begin, there are victories. And there are victories if you know where to go, your sources to go. I mean, the great million people march in 2003, that didn't go anywhere because they didn't keep marching. It was the most fantastic thing, but they didn't keep marching. It had no resilience. And that's as
Well,
I
hang on, John. Hang on. So, are you suggesting that if you can get that million people to go back to the Plaza de Mayo or wherever, like the Madres de Malvinas did, or for the mothers of the disappeared, they went every effing Thursday for year after year after year. So we need Thursday meetings in squares, or something, but with an idea, with a kernel of an idea, broader than the disappeared children of these women who stuck to it and stuck.
They're still there, by the way. They're still there every Thursday. They actually came to New York City, 4 of them, and helped us in our movement against New York's racist, draconian Rockefeller drug laws, the Madres de Plaza de Mayo. They are just the best. John, I mean, you believe in direct. I think this is your biggest call in a while for direct action. I mean, have we thrown in the towel trying to do this in a conventional way?
Well, I believe in direct action. I think it is the only way. I think it's over. And today should be another clarion call to us. It's over. This is going to go on. Julian is going to suffer in Belmarsh while they go through the whole legal system. But will it help him? It may. There may something may happen. Let that happen. But for most of us, it has to be direct action now. Some people are doing it and are doing it very successfully, but they need allies. They need what Percy Shelley said. There are a few of them and many of us. That has to be enacted. There are many of us, but we somehow haven't come together. We came together in that great demonstration. There are lessons to learn. Look what's happened in India, the biggest demonstrations of all time by the Indian farmers.
And they won.
They've won. Millions of people. They marched on Delhi. Political people, not simply rural people following their leaders, all of them. Political people understood what they were doing, and Modi has climbed down and repealed these repressive laws that have been constricting agriculture in India. So there's our inspiration. In a way it's giving up our liberal illusions. Oh gosh, there's got to be something good about the Guardian. No, there isn't.
There isn't.
Nothing.
You know what? There isn't. There really isn't. And I believe in direct action. We should be going out in front of MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post. There'll be something here on. I got to get this in on a Monday at noon in front of the British consulate at 885 2nd Avenue. There'll be a press conference and there'll be a bunch of demonstrators in support of Assange. So let that be the seed. We need everybody to go to the British consulate on Monday in their various countries, and then go to various media outlets, go to the sidewalks. I believe in that. I went down to DC and for 4 days did a vigil in front of Department of Justice. Not that many people showed up, but you got to just keep trying. We have somebody I want to go to. She's been waiting. She's a very good friend of Daniel, and she was recently on this show. She's been in the same book that you're in, Julian Assange in Defense of, and that is stage director, journalist Angela Richter. I know that you are heartbroken by this development today. Can you hear me okay, Angela?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hi, can you hear me? I have somehow a bad connection, so I hope it holds. I'm in Croatia, it's the Balkans. But like you said, I'm really devastated today. I don't know why, because I wasn't expecting actually something positive, but still it was devastating when I heard it, And I really feel like it's like watching a car crash in slow-mo. That's what Nils this morning said to me, It's really like watching a car crash in slow motion, and then you don't know what to say, I am very depressed today, so sorry. And I'm afraid I would just repeat everything that you guys said already before I came here, commenting the case. I think it's really unbelievable, and that there is something. I mean, it's a monstrous dysfunctionality of human rights, what happens here, because if it's possible that after the revelations of these Yahoo news, that the US was trying to kidnap and kill Julian while he was in London in the embassy. I mean, this should be the end of every trial if human rights exist. So today we saw they don't exist anymore. So it's just unbelievable, and I don't know. I mean, you were just discussing direct action and so on. I'm in for all kinds of things. I say yes to mainstream. I say yes to no stream. I say yes to everything. But the devastating fact is that most people don't seem to care. They seem to have lost the ability for empathy, the ability for to go against injustice, And what I also find devastating is to see how people can be mobilized once their own little freedoms are in danger. And this is only little freedoms, I don't mind, it's like in the corona crisis now. I don't mind to go somewhere with a mask for 5 minutes, it's not a problem for me. For me, a problem is that Julian Assange is in jail, And so for me, it's very interesting to see how our capitalist society developed over the time, that people don't have any empathy. As long as they are not personally affected, they don't give a damn, And this is something which is very devastating. I know there is a lot of us, people who think like us, but what we would need now is really this big bang, And I think 10 years ago, it would have been possible to have that. I think after the first big revelations of WikiLeaks, when Julian exposed the war crimes, etc., all these leaks from Manning, I think at that moment it would have been unstoppable. But I think that this narrative of character assassination that's built up over the years, it's really a clever and cunning thing to do, Okay, that's very dark.
All right. Well,
I'm not saying let's give up, but I'm really in a bad mood. Sorry.
Right. Well,
Nils.
Nils.
Right, look, what I wanted to just on this, I think Angela is exactly right. People care only about their own interests. So let's explain to people that this is about them. You see, all of us are,
they need to feel it.
Yes, because look, many of you are personal friends of Julian Assange. So this may sound strange to you, but an average person out there doesn't know him and probably doesn't like him without knowing him, because they think to know things about him that are not true, but they have this prejudice against him, as I had one in the beginning before, I get into this case. But so what I want to say is, let's stop to try to convince people that this is unfair to Assange. Yes, it is. It's horrible what's being done to him. But it is about them and their own interests and their future and their kids and their ability to know the truth about what their governments are doing with their tax money and their own power that they have delegated to them, and what they have to expect if they allow a world to be created before their eyes where it's a crime to tell the truth, where they're not allowed to ask questions because they will be regarded as conspirators in espionage. What will the world look like, and what will this world be doing to them and their children? Because they're not part of the elites. 99% of the population is not part of the elites. And once they realize that they're going to lose everything because they're not acting now, then you'll get a movement. You see, right. Because expecting empathy from everybody is noble, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. We have some time left. I want to go to you, Stefania, as a journalist. Remind people of the great contribution that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks has made to the world of journalism.
Well, they started a revolution, and it is a revolution. I mean, you can see how crucial information in the public interest, and they have revealed such an important series of things, and about every country. It's not just about the US, it is about Russia, about China, it's about Iran, about every country. So I mean, no media organization have had such an impact, and no media organization had been able to introduce such a revolutionary system to change journalism. They really open a gaping hole in this secret power, what I call the secret power, the power you cannot see in the in the talk show, the power you cannot see. It's not the power that decided about your schools or your health system, not directly but indirectly, because they spend. It's the powers that make my country, for example, to fight in Afghanistan for 20 years when we didn't have the money to have decent schools or decent hospitals, So they opened a gaping hole in this secret power, and never before, with the exception of Daniel Ellsberg and its Pentagon Papers, never before it had been possible. They made it systematic, not just once in a while. They started a real revolution. That's why they want the US and actually all powers, as Nils Melzer said, want to crush them. No one wants to see their dirty secrets exposed. That's why, I mean, everyone want Julian Assange dead, and WikiLeaks destroyed. That's why they want to do it.
That's in your book. That's coming out. Where can people get that book?
Well, it will take still a while because I'm litigating this bloody freedom of information case, and I'm fighting against Scotland Yard and Crown Prosecution Service, the State Department. So I'm still fighting very hard, and I will put together all this FOIA litigation, all these documents, to expose how completely corrupt. It's a massive scandal. It's a monstrous injustice, as Ken Loach called it in the preface to my book. It's a massive scandal, this case. And I want to put together all these facts. There are something like 600 footnotes in my book to document everything. No one can say, well, there are no references. There are 600 footnotes to document everything. I expect libel cases, but I have the documentation, and I have been fighting so hard to get this documentation. Completely alone. There was not a single journalist. You have to realize, not a single journalist in the world tried to get these documents. No one from the US, no one from the UK, no one from anywhere, no one, that's incredible.
Yes. All right. I want to hear from the three remaining guests here. Nils is back, and I'm going to say goodbye to the people at WBAI. Thank you for carrying this. It's a news hour coming up, so they're taking off, but the show continues. It's on everywhere, and so I'm going to get a wrap up here from everybody. Let me begin. A couple of minutes from each individual. We'll start with you, Angela. Then we'll go with Roger, and then we'll go with Nils, and then we'll go with the great whistleblower of the 20th century, Daniel Ellsberg. All right.
Randy, can I just tell one thing to Roger? We need music. We need a language which speaks to everyone, to everybody. We need music, really, Roger. We need a language which is universal.
Well, his music is fantastic.
People cannot get the news. Maybe they hate to read newspaper. Maybe they hate the television. But people love music. That could help to mobilize people.
Really. He's been so prolific. He's been so prolific. Let's go. Have you heard the bar? We're going to play the bar later on. We're going to go to you, Angela. Just a wrap up. We're going to go around the horn here. And then we'll go to Roger, and then Nils, and then Daniel.
Yes. Okay. I agree here with Stefania, because being an artist myself, I do believe really that art can be very powerful, especially music. I think it is the strongest thing. And in this case, and this goes also to Roger Waters, we need something on like another brick in the wall. It has to be that level of hit, Yep. That, I mean, it still blows my mind when I listen to it, and I've had this feeling since I'm, 7 or something. So we really need something strong, I think. And then I agree with Nils, we somehow people have to feel threatened by what's happening to Julian. It's definitely the case. So I think we just have to keep going, because I remember when the piece came out by Nils, and for the first time people really realized that the Swedish case is bullshit, And I'm sorry for the language, people, but
we're off the air, BAI, so you're okay.
And so I think that this was really a moment when at least most of the mainstream media just couldn't keep up this narrative that they did for 10 years. So this was a very powerful moment, and I think it was also very bad luck that the pandemic happened and so on. People started caring about themselves even more. So it's always also bad luck, in a way. But because we had this wave after this thing came out, but we just have to keep going, and everyone should use the tools that they have as strong as they can, because giving up and surrendering is no option,
Right. Roger, there are two people that are calling for more music from Roger Waters. And your music has for decades been a very powerful tool for change. What do you see? Why aren't there more musicians, songwriters, poets like yourself out there with the same kind of passion and commitment? Well, you can use the F word now because we're no longer on WBAI. It's all right. You can use it.
It's been, how the fuck would I know? I mean, you'd have to ask them, wouldn't you? I've no idea. Trust me, that is a question that I stopped asking myself some time ago, having tried to engage fellow musicians in some of my other activities, political activities, blah, 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 blah. I was really fascinated though by Nils's explaining about the illusioned and the disillusioned, and how important that is for something to keep, in the frontal lobes when thinking about this. Because I live in the United States of America, so I was interested in what Daniel was saying in response to what John Pilger had been saying earlier about the First Amendment and arguments about whether or not Obama had this or that or the other, and blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. The fact is that American exceptionalism, explaining as it does so much to us about the capitalist and particularly neoliberal capitalist model and the way it is destroying the planet that we live on, that we all live on, but how much that whole idea has to be exploded, because I mean, I live here, so I feel it all around me, and people look at you as if you're completely insane when you say, well, the elephant in the room, ladies and gentlemen, is your feeling that you are exceptional in a way that is good. No, you're not. You're exceptional. Your country, United States of America, is very exceptional in a way that is appallingly bad. You're very powerful and you're very well armed, and you go around the world murdering and plundering and raping, and you think it's a great way to behave. You've been doing it for the last 400 fucking years. Well, it's not. And that is the elephant in the room. But they are illusion. They believe they're great. They can't, and it's very difficult to say something that's contrary. Why do you live there then? Why don't you fuck off back to England where you come from, you lanky prick? Well,
I'm glad I got
that's my business.
Well, let me tell you something. You should take
here. I want to go. Sorry, I hadn't finished quite. Love the illusion disillusion thing. Nils has gone now. Oh no, he's back. I love it. I think.
Listen, you should take that and put music behind it.
I have. I've been trying to go on the road for years now, but I can't because of COVID and people aren't allowed to gather in rooms and whatever. My tour, which I wrote or started writing 3 years ago, is called This Is Not a Drill. And in the title, it's all there, how I feel, and what the whole new show that I was taking on the road is about, is trying to disillusion people from the illusion that this is okay, and that this is not okay, and this is not a drill, and we are all in a slow car crash, which again is an image that I like very much, but you are witnessing it as bad weather and the odd wildfire here or there in Brisbane, but actually we're all dying a lot faster than is probably necessary, because we have the illusion that this is okay, what's going on. Well, it isn't. And we have to become disillusioned with it, as Nils said. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Nils, it looks like you're concurring with his assessment.
Oh, absolutely. And also, I think, it's absolutely right. This illusion of the empire is a good thing, but also realizing that people living in those empires, and by and large in the Western rich countries, believe that they're actually benefiting from that. They don't see that they are part of the 99%. The populations, even in the rich countries, are being exploited by their elites. Even they are being exploited, but they don't see that. And that's why I wrote this book, to realize that this is about them. That's my way of trying. We don't write books like this as special rapporteurs all the time, but I felt this is the only way I can try to reach the broader public and explain to them through my story how I had fooled myself into thinking that I'm part of a somehow just and functioning rule of law system. I'm not. And I had to dissociate myself from it and tell the truth about it, first to myself, accept it, and then tell it through this book. And I invite people to join me on that journey from, the shore of illusion through the river of truth, basically, to the shore of disillusion. It is painful, but it's also liberating, because it gives you back your power, that you can actually influence your world around you and what's happening. And what really is the truth is that 99% of the population is disempowered and doesn't even know about it. And this is the truth. I mean, Julian Assange, everybody, believes he's a narcissist. It was never about him for himself. It was about the general public finding out the truth about what's really going on. So this is his work, and this is our work as well. Everybody through his channels. Music, I agree. Music reaches your heart directly. It's another way of communicating to people. People will listen to you that will not listen to speeches, will not read interviews, not read books. They will listen to music. Even if they don't realize it, it will go somehow unconsciously into their brains. So just as the destructive narratives have unconsciously entered our minds and, created prejudices we're not even aware of, just the same way, positive messages can enter our minds, and we really should use those channels.
Well said. I want to go now. You talked about Julian Assange. He's not a popular figure. It's not like a Nelson Mandela, or even you, Daniel Ellsberg. When you were arrested and you were charged way back in '71, there was a huge movement, but of course it came on the heels of the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the anti-war movement. They all kind of dovetailed into where you were when you were charged. So what is that the difference? Why you had so much support and Julian doesn't right now? Because there's a dearth of movements out here?
Well, my disillusion began a few years before my first direct action, which was, as you point out, Randy, 50 years ago this year. My first direct action was for the Pentagon Papers, which put me on trial facing 115 years in prison. On the same charges, Julian is now facing 175. So that's the difference. There's a little inflation there. But there is another difference, which is that, as I keep saying, in our country, Julian is the first, and he's an Australian, not an American, but he's the first journalist to be tried and prosecuted and facing years in prison for putting out information. The problem with the New York Times was, if you start with Julian, how do you stop doing it from the New York Times, prosecuting him? And the answer is, you can't. So things can actually get worse. It occurs to me for the first time listening to all of you and realizing, let's see, aside from Randy, I think you and I are the only Americans here. I can't see how British journalists can take seriously the illegal, unconstitutional aspects of prosecuting Julian, because they've been subject to prosecution all their lives, and they've come to accept it.
That's irrelevant.
What? Pardon me?
I think that's completely irrelevant.
Roger, you're full of shit. You're full of shit on that point. So let me correct you. The fact is that journalists get arrested all the time, or not all the time, but have been arrested in Britain. So they're kind of used to it. Do you see a movement in Britain against the Official Secrets Act? There should be. They should not have an Official Secrets Act of the kind they're all used to, and they do. So it occurs to me that what I've been doing for a long time is trying to keep my country from being as bad on this point as Britain. Now, in most cases, the American Revolution didn't create any marvelous utopia by any means, and really there isn't that much different from the British democratic system, except on one point, the First Amendment. That's the point on which there is a difference. And I didn't want us to go like Britain, and of course most countries are worse. So there's something that could actually get worse. Now, John made a good point, and Randy, I'm sorry he's not here now, but will you pass on to him my thanks for reminding me that direct action against the media, putting them on account of their shortcomings and their not moving on these things, and they're being part of the imperial system. Our media did not protect us from Vietnam. It did not protect us from aggression in Iraq. And by the way, neither did the British media, of course. They joined us in both of those aggressions. So the fact is that we did civil disobedience. As I say, I joined a movement of civil disobedience. We did it against the executive largely, and with some help from the media. We didn't do it on the media ever, and that's a good idea. Sit-ins there, protests, mission, and whatnot is a good idea. Nils, I want to recommend to people, your book hasn't come out yet, but I have read it, and I very much recommend people reading it, even to those of us on the screen who think we know about Assange. We've been following it all this time. But the fact is that your book is extremely illuminating and very impressive, very unusual. As a member of the establishment, I think I may say, as a UN rapporteur here, who changed his mind and saw some, changed his mind. It's an impressive personal document on that. So thank you for it, and I recommend other people reading it. As far as I was really impressed by Angela's point, maybe she's left here, that a problem is that the public doesn't show the concern when they do hear the facts that we wish they did. I don't foresee a movement, frankly, in favor of the First Amendment here. People don't know any more about it here than they do in Britain. How do I know about it? It's the one part of the law that I know about because I was the first person prosecuted under it. So I know 18 U.S.C. 793 paragraphs D and E, which is what Julian is charged with, because I was charged with it. And now it's getting even worse. And that's the last point I want to make here, is that, yes, I agree with everything everyone has said here on criticism of the American empire. And I think we all agree on the British Empire and a lot of other imperialists. But to think that's it can't get any worse. So there's nothing to do but in the streets. The courts don't matter. The media don't matter. Congress doesn't matter. It can get worse. And here's the sad fact. It's going to get worse. Right. We're looking right now, if people think that there's no difference between Biden, as I say, is even worse on this point than Obama. If they think there's no difference between whoever succeeds Biden and Trump, they're going to learn differently. So Trump is now the favorite for 2024. To think that electoral politics has no part in this, in preventing Trump, is very foolish. How about direct action? After my first one, I've been arrested almost 90 times. I'm 99, but I'm very close to 90 arrests. So I believe in that, absolutely. I got arrested in front of the White House for Chelsea Manning, her isolation, and at Quantico, where she was being held in isolation. And that, by the way, actually worked. We got her out of isolation. The same thing with Julian. I think there is a case where we might get people concerned about his actual condition. But as everybody's been saying here, Nils and Richter, but they hate him, so they're not going to do this. But John's point is, and Nils' point, when people see that the target is on their backs, that they're going to think, I don't think you can get the general public concerned about that. I'm sorry to say. I've been trying for half a century, and I have to say, I don't see that coming. But for the first time, journalists can get excited. Not for me. Believe me, it didn't happen then, and it didn't happen for any of the other couple dozen people who've come along, because the journalists thought, oh, those are just sources. That's not me. They think of sources as snitches and informants, and they don't give a shit about their sources. I can tell you that. But in terms when they are faced with prosecution themselves, as I've been trying to convince them for 50 years, they will be, but they weren't, so they didn't get excited. Now they are subject to prosecution. That gives us a chance for actually getting them excited. And I'll do the best I can.
Right. That's very well said, Daniel. Look, we just have a few minutes. We're going to play. You talked about Rogers. We're going to go out. Please cue that up, Kelly. The bar, a piece of the bar, an excerpt of the bar that has a nice little slideshow to it. That Roger gave us a few months back, and we played it. And the next time, Nils will be playing Moonlight Sonata, but we're going to play this protest song. We're going to go out with the bar by Roger Waters, and you can see the whole thing at Live on the Fly. You can see the whole with lyrics. Roger even helped us get the lyrics put on the screen. So it's an incredible piece of music. I'll send it around to everybody. Stefania, before we play that, any last words from you before we go out with the bar?
Yes, we don't have all the time ahead. We really have to act. We really have to mobilize people to take the street, because there's not much time left for Julian. I believe there is not much time left for Julian. So I mean, we really have to push hard to make people to mobilize and to take the streets, because the legal system will not save him, will not protect him, of course. I mean, the legal system has crushed him. So all is left is the political action, the public pressure, people taking to the streets.
Yes. Before we go, because we've been talking about this Kafkaesque trial, I've been wanting to play this for everybody here. It's about a minute and a half. This is William Kunstler, my godfather. Him after the Chicago 8 trial, him coming out and really summarizing. This is from the documentary by his kids. It's called Disturbing the Universe. Now, just listen to this little bit. Can you cue that up, Kelly? You got that? This is William Kunstler.
That's the terrible myth of organized society, that everything that's done through the established system is legal, and that word has a powerful psychological impact. It makes people believe that there is an order to life and an order to a system, and that a person that goes through this order and is convicted has gotten all that is due him, and therefore society can turn its conscience off and look to other things and other times. And that's the terrible thing about these past trials, is that they have this aura of legitimacy, this aura of legality. I suspect that better men than the world has known, and more of them, have gone to their death through a legal system than through all the illegalities in the history of man. 6 million people in Europe during the Third Reich, legal. Sacco Vanzetti, quite legal. The Haymarket defendants, legal. The hundreds of rape trials throughout the South, where black men were condemned to death, all legal. Jesus, legal. Socrates, legal. And that is the kaleidoscopic nature of what we live through here and in other places. Because all tyrants learn that it is far better to do this thing through some semblance of legality than to do it without that pretense.
Okay. Anybody disagree with that? Pretty moving. That's from Disturbing the Universe by Emily and Sarah Kunstler. So.
Well, basically, we need him to come back, right? No, but I get your point. It's really very powerful.
That's what Julian is going through right now. That's what's happening to Julian, what happened to Donziger, what happened to our friend Craig Murray. They went through a legal system, a BS legal system. Kunstler is referring to them, basically, right? I'm predicting what was happening today. Roger, was that not nice? You got to see that documentary, Disturbing the Universe. I'll send you a link.
I want to see it.
All right. And I want to thank Stefania Maurizi for all your great work, all of your wonderful, brave, heroic work in the last 12 years that I've seen it with WikiLeaks. I know it goes way back. You, Nils, I'm looking forward to your book, as I am Stefania's. It's called Trial of Julian Assange. I got a copy of it. I read it. It is a must read. Let's get one over to Daniel. He's read it. Right. Daniel's already read it, so he knows. Angela, get Angela a copy. I love you. And it's not just because you love dogs. You know, I lost my dog this week. This was a very difficult one. So thank you all for being part of this today. And I want to thank Kelly Lang and you, Daniel. Man, you are an inspiration. All you are. And
Roger, let me say what you said about the elephant in the room couldn't be better said. I applaud it. I agree. Thanks for saying it. Get it out as much as possible. That's what I'm trying to do.
All right. All right, we're going to go out with the bar now, folks. We'll see you next time here on the Assange Countdown to Freedom. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly Lane. You did a marvelous job. Our first time using this system. Fabulous.
Thanks,
I love you all. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Does everybody in the bar feel shame? Lord knows I do. I guess we all feel pretty much the same. Kind of wore out by this crazy fucking zoo. The smell of napalm with the cornflakes. The chafe of killing everything that breathes. Imposing sanctions on the lady down the street. Till she takes the hint and packs her bags and leaves. Come on in here, sister, and set us better. You are most welcome in the bar. We may seem few, but we are many. Have you been traveling far? The girl who brought you in here is Lakota. From Standing Rock, where they made their stand. So from Fort Yates, North Dakota, here's a message for the man. Would you kindly get the fuck off our land?
That's all she wrote. Good night, everybody.